Welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Brandon Gaille, and Brandon is from Rank IQ. He gets over 5 million monthly visitors from over 100,000 first page Google rankings. And Brandon has taught his SEO growth hacks to over 20,000 bloggers through his podcast called The Blogging Millionaire. And Rank IQ itself is an AI powered SEO toolset tailored for bloggers and small businesses that have a blog. They have a keyword tool that does keyword research for you. It identifies the low competition, high traffic keywords in over 300 industry niches. Exciting stuff. We all need to be focusing on our content on SEO. It can be boring, but if we can make more money from it, grow our business, it's exciting. So Brandon, glad to be talking to you.
Nice to be here.
It is nice to have you here. And with this whole like search engine optimization thing, I don't know about you, but I go back and forth between I get overwhelmed with all the things I need to know or all the things I'm not doing or saying like, ooh, should I be doing this guest blogging or this link building or running through this tool or keyword research? But then sometimes when I talk to someone like you and I hear about stories and about like problems and solutions, I get excited all over again. So do you ever have those days when you're just like, SEO, I need to like get my brain excited to go and solve these problems?
I can see where you're coming from. And a lot of bloggers and small businesses do get overwhelmed with all the different tactics they're always bombarded with. It's just like anyone, the SEO blogs are trying to pump out as many blog posts as they can. And the simple fact is you don't need to know 100 different things. You really just need to know a handful of things that work well that you can execute upon.
Well, it's like there's like some Bruce Lee quote, right? Of like you just need to be really good and be the best at this one move. You don't need to know all these 10,000 different moves. Just do this one thing really well. So to give us a lay of the land, to understand who you are and where you're coming from, what is your best move? What should we be doing as far as getting these Google rankings and all that fun stuff?
It all starts and ends with keyword research. If you end up choosing the wrong keyword, you can write an incredible post and you'll never rank for it. So what I did back in 2013, before I made my first blog post, I spent 6 months researching some of the top visited websites. Specifically back then they had an Alexa ranking tool. So I looked at the top 20,000 Alexa rankings and I got rid of all the big brand names and the big personal brands. So I just looked at blogs that were basically made by just simple people. And what I found, there was a trend of these sloppy blogs that had poor design and poor content, but they were getting a tremendous amount of traffic. And the one commonality was they were consistently writing blog posts on low competition keywords. So they could get away with small content that wasn't that great because there just wasn't anybody competing for that. So that was the foundation that I set forward. And in the first year, I spent 50% of my time on blog posts with low competition and 50% on different other types of blog posts. But after that year passed, I saw in the analytics that 98% of my traffic was coming from those 50% of posts that I did that were on low competition keywords. And from that point on, I just focused 95% of all my posts were on low competition keywords. That allowed me to quickly break 1 million monthly visitors and then move on to beyond 5 million where I'm at right now.
Well, congratulations on your success there. And I mean, what you're saying makes perfect sense, that the whole point of search engines and Google and all of them is to help people find what they're looking for. And if there's these kind of high demand, low competition phrases, keywords, things that people are looking for, and maybe they're not exactly getting the results that they want, or maybe those blog posts that already exist are on ugly websites, or maybe they're like 5 years out of date, that leaves things wide open for the rest of us to create some of this helpful content. And so as far as like we use these tools, we figure out what is low competition, what needs blogging about. Then there's the question of, well, what's the next step from there? Is there like a lot of like researching and figuring out possible titles and topics, or looking up data, or like once you figure out these keywords, then what's the next step in the strategy in your mind?
Well, you got to start with the right tools. And one of the problems that a lot of bloggers and small businesses face is that the majority of the keyword research tools out there, like Ahrefs and SEMrush, are just focused on SEO experts and chief marketing officers, and it's not made for the common person. And what happens is they buy the tool, but they don't understand how to use it and how to go deeper. So, for example, most of them will search for the monthly volume and just look at that, and they'll choose keywords based upon what it says the search volume is for a month. And that's a metric that's really only supposed to be used for Google Ads because it's just for one single keyword phrase. And you want to look at how many keyword phrases that you could rank for, the different variations, LSI, because a typical blog post is going to rank between 100 to 1,000 different variations of the same word. And that's how you determine what the traffic is. But it's just, there's just no way for that average business person or blogger to go onto Ahrefs and SEMrush and figure it out. And I spent a couple of years having a blogging course and having a huge module on explaining how to do keyword research, specifically how I did it to teach bloggers. But half of them were just overwhelmed with the information that I was giving them. And that's what led me to create Rank IQ, to where our keyword research, we do the keyword research for the bloggers in 300 plus blogging niches, so that all they need to do is click in whatever business niche or blogging niche they're on. Then they get access to the 1,000 to 5,000 keywords that we've found that are low competition and have high traffic. That way they can pick from those words, whatever they want to write on, and know confidently that they can write on this topic. And if they do a great job with the content, that they're going to rank on Google and actually get traffic from it.
And you know what you say makes perfect sense, that it's tempting to use these tools that are meant for pay-per-click, because you think, well, if all I care about is what people are searching for, of course that's what I think I should use. But then but then when you explain it, you're like, well, you run an ad and it only has this little bit of content. You have full control over this keyword gets this result. But in a blog post, you have all these pages. Who knows if someone types in a phrase and it's some phrase in the article, if it's in a subheading, if it's in the title. So it makes perfect sense that an ad is just for this phrase, but a blog post you could rank for, once you said one single blog post could rank for thousands of different phrases. So it makes sense when you explain it that way, that these tools that people have been using that are meant for pay-per-click is the wrong tool for the job for organic search engine ranking. And then we need to use Rank IQ to narrow down what our niche and industry is, and then figure out these kind of sub keywords and figure out what we need to create content on. And so we use this tool. And so you say it spits out like thousands of keywords. Is that what you said?
So myself and a team, we break down every single major blogging niche. Or if someone signs up and their niche isn't covered, then we spend several weeks identifying the keywords, and then we run all the algorithms to identify all of the words from those keywords that a typical blog can rank for, so that they're all low competition. Because you can do keyword research and find some great keywords that you want to write on, but if they're not low competition, it doesn't matter. You're not going to rank for them. So what we do is we identify the words. So basically the 100 hours that someone would have to spend on keyword research, and then make sure they don't have user error, we do that for them, so that all they have to do is, if they're a food blogger that wants to write on chicken recipes, they go into the food blog chicken recipe section, and it shows them all the chicken recipes that are low competition that pretty much any blogger or business can rank on the first page of Google for.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying it. And so if I'm getting you right, so someone joins Rank IQ and there's already these 300 topics that you and your team have already researched for us, like food blogging. And if they're in some kind of other weird niche that is not in there, then your team will make it number 301, correct?
Correct.
Well, cool. And then so say a food blogger goes in there, they say, all right, these are the chicken recipes that I need to write content for. How does a person then use that information? Is it a matter of saying like, well, I'll use these 10 in an article, or think of an article for each one? Or is it like a case by case basis? Like, how do we go from this pile of keywords into then begin figuring out this content strategy?
So every keyword that's in our library for a specific niche is meant to be a standalone blog post. So whatever keyword that you have, let's say it's on carrot cake recipe. That's then next to that, you'll see the competition score, which is from 0 to 30. For bloggers that understand what domain authority is, it's tied to whatever your domain authority is. If you have a domain authority 30 site, then anything 30 and below you could rank for. Then it also tells you the estimated yearly visitors you'll get as opposed to the monthly volume, and then also how long it will take for you to rank on the first page. From there, once you choose your keyword, there's a button right next to it that says run report. And our keyword research is tied to AI SEO content optimization. So if you were to run a report on carrot cake, then it's going to show you all the topics and words that Google likes the most. So it analyzes the top 30 results and identifies the common threads of those top 30 that they've covered in their content, so that you can quickly create an outline in 5 to 10 minutes, as opposed to having to do the research of the first 3 pages of Google and try to figure out what other people are writing about. So that gives you the template for your outline. Then in the same report, it also tells you the words that Google likes the most in title. So it analyzes the top 30 titles, and then it lists out the words so that you can kind of mix and match from those words to create your own title, because the titles are there because click-through rate is a big component of the algorithm. And it's important that your title is written the right way, because the higher your click-through rate, the faster you move up in the rankings.
Okay, well, that sounds very helpful to see those other 30 results and give us an idea of what's already working, what we should be writing about, the outline, the title. It seems very helpful. And then also, so next, like thinking about like best practices, you have all these users who are using your tool. And do you have any advice about like how many like blog posts per day is a good amount? I know it depends on like what kind of traffic you want, what your goals are, but have you seen anyone that kind of has a good mindset as far as saying like, well, we want to put out like 10 blog posts per day, or like, 10 per week? Is there anything along those lines of like what you see is working really well that we should all try to shoot for with our content marketing?
What I've seen is the bloggers that are doing 1 post per day are having the best results. The fact is, unless you have a huge team, your small business, they're just going to have 1 or 2 people writing for your blog. And if you're a blogger, you're starting out and it's just you. It's you only have so much time. If you try to do too many, then your content's not going to be the most comprehensive piece of content, and you're not going to rank. And if you don't do enough, you're not going to be getting enough traffic and having enough momentum. So one of the people using the tool, because we have a mastermind group and they share their stories, they did 1 post per day, and starting 6 months ago, and this past week they went over 50,000 monthly sessions, which is a tremendous growth, because typically it takes a little while for you to build up your traffic from rankings. But they basically did a post per day and they did it all on low competition keywords that Rank IQ told them to write for, and they had phenomenal success. Whereas the average blogger, if they only do it one per week doing the same thing, might take 2 to 3 years before you get enough traffic either to make a living or to have an impact on your business if you have a blog for that small business.
And that is good to know. And as you know, Brandon, sometimes we don't realize the amount of work that needs to be put in, or even just the amount of diligence. And there's something to be said, even in your answer there, of having this kind of schedule and saying, well, I'll wake up, and if I'm a 1-person team or I have a small team, then I'll make sure that before noon that blog post is written, and either I'll write it or I'll check it. But there's something to be said about maybe like that discipline, so that way we can maybe like take these small, consistent steps, and then not have to say, oh no, I need to catch up. I need to do 20 blog posts a day to catch up on the 20 days I was missing. And I think a 1 blog post a day is doable. And you always hear about like the length of blog posts. And sometimes this idea gets thrown around of like a 1,500 or so word blog post of like what search engines like. Is that what you see, or is that what you teach as far as like the appropriate length for a blog post as far as what Google's looking for?
There is no exact or appropriate length across the board. Every single topic is treated independently, and the goal is to create the most comprehensive piece of content on that topic. So a food recipe might be 700 to 1,000 words. A post on SEO tips might be 5,000 to 6,000 words. So in the same report that I was talking about that showed the top titles and the top topics to cover, it also shows a weighted word count across the top 30 and weighting the top 10 more, and then getting rid of the highs and the lows, so you kind of get an idea where you need to shoot for the word count. But also, it's not about just hitting the words. You want to make those words count. You don't want to, if you write 2,000 words and 50% of it is a bunch of fluff and not getting straight to the point, then you're still not going to have the most comprehensive set of topics or set of tips. So you identify what the word count is, and then you want to use those words to make your post the most comprehensive there is, so that you can outrank everybody else.
Well, fair enough. That's a data-driven and logical way of going about it. And so, since we're on this topic of making your content like the best it can be, and going for not just the quantity, but the quality as well, I'm always curious about when I see this blog post. I'm curious about like the amount like maintenance or updating that went into it over the years, because sometimes you'll see on like YouTube and blog posts too, like the current year, and you'll be like, oh, this is cool. They've updated this like WordPress tutorial for like the most recent version, or updated their screenshots. Is that a thing that you recommend people do, as far as like going back to maybe like the winning content or the losing content and like fixing it up a bit? Or is it just a matter of just keep pumping out new stuff?
It needs to be a combination. I mean, the posts that you're already ranking for, you've got to take care of it. I mean, just like if you look at this, how much time and money it takes to acquire a new customer, from looking at it from the business standpoint, the same thing goes for the time and money it takes to create a piece of content that ranks high enough in Google to get traffic. One of the biggest mistakes that pro bloggers make is that they focus on the new content, and they're constantly pumping that out, and they're not looking at their old content and where they're ranking. And what typically happens is you're going to have 20 to 30% of your past post getting outranked by someone else that had a more comprehensive piece of content. Let's say you were ranking with the 40 best SEO tips, and then someone else came along and did the 60 best SEO tips, and it was a little bit better, and then that outranked you, when all you really need to do is go back to that post, add on some more tips to the end, and to go from number 3 to number 1. And the difference between number 3 and number 1 is 300% more traffic. And so what happens is these bloggers are looking at their overall traffic, and it looks like it's going up, and they don't understand that they have all these past posts that are hemorrhaging traffic because they've gone from number 1 to number 3, when all they need to do is the equivalent of about 20% of the work it would take to write a fresh new blog post, and they're going to instantly get back to that number 1 position. So it's important to go and update your past posts. Another thing is for keeping it up to date in the post titles, having the current year gets you in brackets after your title, gets you about 30% more clicks. So people will scan the titles, especially anything with tutorials or tactics, and they're going to look for titles that have the current year, and they're going to click over that, versus someone that doesn't have the current year or doesn't have the year in general. So just like you have a blog post calendar for new blog posts, you want to have a blog post calendar for updating past posts to make sure that they're up to date with the current information, and changing that year to the current year when it gets to December or January.
Well, that's a hot tip right there. But as you're explaining that, what's going on in my imagination are like some of these video games where you're like taking over lands, and you take over like this territory. And if you're attacking something new, you don't want someone to come behind you and gobble up the territory that you already had, especially if it's not that much work just to hang on to what you already have. So that makes perfect sense. And do you have a tool, or is this built into your tool, to like see how this content is ranking over time? Because I imagine that it would be helpful to see like, well, what is going up in the ranks, what is going down to the ranks, so that way I know maybe what to focus my time on.
We do have a very unique tool that works with Google Search Console. You can find this data in Google Search Console, but it's really hard to figure out how to go through the different filters each time. It's about a 4 or 5 step process to do the filter to see where the loss is. So our tool just connects with your Google Search Console account, and it gives you 7 different sections. And one of the sections is the posts that have the most lost traffic in the previous 90 days. That way that you can constantly just go in there once a month and see where you're at. If there's something that's losing traffic, then it's real easy to click on it and say, okay, I need to add something to that. So you don't have to do any filters. You click your check rankings. It communicates with Google Search Console and gives you those 6 sections. And one of those sections tells you which posts are losing the most traffic.
Well, you've given us a really helpful plan here. We're talking about near the end of the year, once a year, updating the year number in the title. We're talking about once a month, do this looking back at the content that's there to see what is losing traffic in the past 90 days and maybe pump that up a little bit. We're talking about putting out 1 new blog post per day, so that way there's always something new and fresh and coming up. And so as we're starting to wind down our conversation here, Brandon, is there anything that you think that I'm not asking you, that you think that we're leaving out? Because what we want to do is, if people have given up on SEO in the past, or they've kind of only thought about it, or they say, well, I've used it, but I'm frustrated with the tool now. We want them to push them towards using Rank IQ. So with that in mind, with that purpose, with that goal, what are we missing, or what should we throw in here at the end to tell people how important this is to get their SEO figured out?
Well, the 3 core areas that you need to make happen to ensure rankings and organic Google traffic or keyword research, which we covered, in content. And the third is backlinks. If you do all the great content and keyword research, you can rank for really low competition keywords. But if you never get people to backlink to your site, then you're going to struggle to get there, because each site has a 0 to 100 score that most people use domain authority. It's a number by Moz. Google doesn't have a score for it, but they basically have a similar score in their algorithm. So you can go to Moz and identify what your domain authority is. Ideally, you want to get your domain authority over 30 and into the 50s. But some bloggers will just never get around to doing anything with backlinks, because it's a little bit more complicated, as opposed to choosing a keyword, writing a post anyone can do. But as for figuring out how to get someone to link to their site because it's valuable, it's hard. And one of the best tools for that is called Hero, which is help a reporter out. Anybody that's starting out with a new blog for the first year, I recommend spending about 20% of their time on Hero. And at the end of the day, you just need about 3 to 5 high quality sites linking to your blog to go from 0 to a 30 DA. Now it's harder to go from 30 to 40, and that might require another 20. But once you get to 30, you can start ranking for enough to build your traffic into tens of thousands of visitors each month. And so using Hero and even going on podcasts like your podcast, because once you do that interview, most podcast hosts will link back to your site in the show notes, and those will add up. And you can also find someone in your niche that's a known person, and go to Apple Podcasts, type in their name, and then you'll see the list of all the episodes that they've been on, and you can reverse engineer that and make a list of the shows. And then you can identify the show's website's domain authority and target the ones that have domain authority. So whenever you get that backlink from a show notes, that it'll make a big impact on your blog.
Well, see, this is what I'm talking about, Brandon, as far as starting the show saying SEO and keywords and metrics and being bored with it. But then near the end, now we have all these fun strategies like appearing on podcasts. There's a little bit of research involved in that reverse engineering you mentioned, but once you're on, 20 or 30 minutes out of your life, and then that backlink is on all these different platforms, on podcastings, but forever, and they're always promoting you. And like little things like that, and help a reporter out, which from my limited knowledge about it is when like reporters are writing news articles, they have like they need help with getting like industry authority figures to have like content, and they usually want some help within like a few hours. And you say, well, hey, here's your prompt, you're looking for the answer to this, and here's my blog post on this that already exists. Is that kind of on the right track as far as help a reporter out?
Yes, they're looking for uh, quotes and sources of information to add to their article that they're writing. And the biggest key with help a reporter out is just being first to respond. So they send out emails a couple times a day, and you can sign up for specific niches or industries. And when you get when you get that email, you want to look at it right away. If anything applies to you, reach out to that reporter, because typically it's first come, first serve.
All right. Well, good to know. We need to jump into that strategy because it sounds like fun, along with the whole deliberately appearing on podcasts, because that's why you're here. And I myself appear on like 2 or 3 podcasts a month. But one of these days I need to make it so diligent where like Friday's podcast day, or like 10 podcasts a week, because I see these people where you Google their name and there's all these podcasts they're on, and from all these high traffic sites. And there's a plan to that. They're not just appearing on podcasts for their health. They do the backlinks, they do the keyword research, they have blog content out there, and they put in this little bit of time every day, every week. They use tools like Rank IQ in order to just keep a track of that and make sure that they're getting the most out of their SEO, their organic ranking, and all that fun stuff. So as we're wrapping up our show here, Brandon, tell us about Rank IQ. Tell us about why it's so important and why we should get it right now and not even wait on it.
Well, just getting those right keywords, it's important. If you've got a blog right now and you don't have a good plan for choosing the right keywords, or you've got user error in your site, or you haven't invested the 100+ hours to find the low competition keywords, you want to get access to Rank IQ right away so that you can start writing the blog post this month on keywords that are going to get you traffic. That's the most important thing. Then, in addition to the tactics that I've covered here, applying to Rank IQ, also have a podcast, The Blogging Millionaire, where I go over more SEO tactics, and it's not just completely tied to Rank IQ, because there's a lot of other things out there, little things that you can do throughout the year that can push you up in the rankings, like internal linking and also ways to monetize.
Well, I think that's very much needed, a podcast like that, because before we know it, the year's up and we say, oh no, I should have been spending all year on doing all these little things like checking my site load time, or making sure there's a call to action on my blog posts, fun things like that. So the Blogging Millionaire is the podcast. And where can we find that? And where can we find Rank IQ?
Blogging Millionaire, just go to either Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app that you're using and type in The Blogging Millionaire, and that'll get you there. And then Rank IQ is rankiq.com.
Very, very easy, very quick and simple to find. And then because Brandon was on the show, he'll have a backlink to both of those things, the Blogging Millionaire podcast over on Apple Podcasts, and then rankiq.com. And we mentioned it a bunch on the show, so that's traffic as well. So that is a thing that we all need to be doing. But the first step, the first thing to do is to go to rankiq.com, go there, click, and get yourself an account. And like, what's the price range? And is there like a trial thing, or like what can we around expect to pay for this amazing tool?
Right now, it's 50% off. It's $49 per month, and that is the only price to come in. Once you get in there, if you need access to more AI SEO reports, you can always upgrade to the higher level to get more reports, but it's just a flat rate. $49 gets you 16 AI SEO reports, unlimited keyword research, and unlimited the check rankings tool that ties into your Google Search Console account.
Super great. Well, rankiq.com is the place to go. Step 1, go there. Step 2, get an account. Step 3, set aside time, a little bit of time every day to make the most out of that first month. Because if you get way more than the $49 of value from using that tool, then you'll want to use it again and again. And you'll say, how the heck did my business survive without organic traffic, without RankIQ, and then increase my organic traffic with RankIQ? So rankiq.com, go there, sign up, use the tool. And then in the background, make sure to have the Blogging Millionaire podcast running. That way you hear about all these extra little tips and stories and you can get really immersed. So rankiq.com is a place to go. Anything to throw in here very last minute, Brandon, or is it just time to wrap it up?
I think it's time to wrap it up.
All right, we'll keep it simple, rankiq.com, and we'll see you there.